As we start learning more about the macroeconomy, we're going to build some macroeconomic models. Now, in the macroeconomy, the things we're really focused on are unemployment, prices, and output. And in fact, the three macroeconomic goals that are most important are to have economic growth, to have low unemployment, and to have stable prices. Well, let's go back a little time. Let's go back, I don't know, 150 years or so. No, more than that. And let's look at the classical economists and how the classical economists look at the macroeconomy. First of all, let's look at how they look at an individual market. Remember when we learned about supply and demand? And let's say we did the supply and demand for pizza, for example. And remember that the spot where they crossed is called equilibrium. And that's the spot that determined the price and the quantity sold of a product. And what happened if the price was set above equilibrium, for example? So let's say in this example that the price was set at $4. Well, at $4, you can see that the amount demanded would be about 2, but yet the amount supplied would be about 5. Well, if there are 3 supplied and people only want to buy 2, that's a surplus. Now, how does a surplus get resolved? Well, in an individual market, the surplus gets resolved by lowering price. Just like the way Walmart lowers the price on products left over after a holiday or at the end of the year. Now, classical economists believe that the macroeconomy works just like these individual markets. And so, if you look at this, at our equilibrium price, now, in this case, we're going to talk about the price is going to be wages. And we're going to look at a macroeconomic market, which is the labor market. And so if this was the labor market and our equilibrium price was right here, that would be the wage, let's just say an hourly wage, that the same amount of people who want a job would also get a job. Now, remember when we look at the labor market, you are the supply. When I mean you, I mean the workers are the supply. They supply their labor. And the employers are demanding labor. They're the demand. And so what would happen if the price was set above equilibrium? So let's say the wages were set too high at $4. Well, at this price, you can see that fewer people want a job at the higher price. No, sorry. Fewer employers want to hire at that price, but yet more people want a job at that price. And so what do we have? We have a surplus. Oh, and a surplus or excess supply is in a labor market is unemployment. So what's happened is at a higher price, more people want a job than there are jobs available. Well, how would this be resolved? Well, according to classical economists, it's resolved the same way as an individual market, in that when there is more supply of labor than there is demand for it, that the price will go down. People will be willing to work for less so that they can get a job. And that will bring us down to the equilibrium price. The other historical figure that we need to know about is Jean-Baptiste Say, and he wrote something called Say's Law. Now, his idea was that as a business creates output, that they pay their workers, which gives them money to buy output. So businesses create more output, and so on and so forth. And what they mean is that supply becomes its own demand. In fact, that is the phrase, that is used to kind of simplify Say's ideas, and that is supply becomes its own demand. The very act of making something gives someone the income in which they could buy it. The main idea, the economy is self-adjusting. Now that's a big deal because this is going to have to do with whether or not the government's going to intervene in hard times. Well, this was the prevailing idea for over 150 years until something happened. What about the Great Depression? Because this time, it didn't seem like this economy was so self-adjusting. During the Great Depression, output fell by 40%. Unemployment was 25%, and wages just didn't adjust the way they were supposed to. Well, why not? Well, there can be many reasons why wages may not fall. You want to keep your employees motivated, so you don't want to bring down their wages. You want to attract the most highly qualified workers, so maybe there's a lot of workers out there, but you want the best ones. You want healthy employees who can eat and have a roof over their head. There may be minimum wages that are set by the government. And of course, we have labor unions and contracts that are set. And so Keynes called this sticky wages. So the wages are sticky. They don't tend to adjust, at least not in the short run. In fact, there was a famous phrase by Keynes when the classical economists would say, let's just wait this out because in the long run it will all adjust. Keynes said, yes, in the long run, falling wages will solve the problem. But in the long run, you're all dead. Meaning that we don't have to wait. We don't want to wait for the long run for things to adjust because that may be a really long time. And so his solution was that it was all about the demand. Now, if we can increase spending, now when I talk about spending, remember we measure the GDP by measuring spending, and we divide it into 4 categories: C plus IG plus G plus XN. So if we can increase any of these categories of spending, consumption spending, investment spending, government spending, or net exports, then output will increase and employment will increase. So if we can increase more spending, we'll have to make more stuff, which means we'll have to hire more people to make it. And that increased government spending can increase demand. Because if we look at those 4 categories, C, IG, G, and XN, which one does the government have direct control over? It doesn't have direct control over consumption because no matter how much you want to tell people, oh, you should spend more money and that will help our economy, if they're nervous about the future, they're not going to spend that money. But the government can directly do that. And so let's look at a basic supply and demand graph and what would happen if they increase the overall demand for products. Well, if they did this, demand would shift to the right, causing the price level to go up, yes, but the output, the quantity, is going up as well. One thing that Keynes does is he ignores inflation and supply shocks, though. So even though there's a big trade-off for inflation in his model, he doesn't account for that. And he doesn't account for times when we have like natural disasters and things where there literally is less stuff out there. All right, so let's look at some other new graphs we need to understand. This is called the consumption schedule. The consumption schedule is used by Keynesian economics to see how much people are spending according to how their income is changing. Because Keynes believed that spending, consumption spending, is dependent upon your income. And so what you'll notice here is this is a consumption schedule. We have got a 45-degree line here. That line is kind of our reference line that we're using. And then we have our consumption line. Okay. So he believed that consumption was dependent upon income. So this is a 45-degree line. And again, this line, what it represents is if we were spending the same amount we were earning. So that means we have a savings of 0. Again, notice up here, let me get this. We've got this label with a C, okay? We've got this label down here with a DI, disposable income. And this 45-degree line would be if we were spending everything we're earning. But we don't spend everything we earn, okay? At least not usually. Usually, we save some. And so this line right here is our consumption line. Now, this spot right here is the one and only spot in which we are spending exactly what we're earning. But notice the consumption line extends out to the right and to the left of that. What do those spots mean? Well, to the right of this equilibrium spot, you'll notice that the spending line is below the 45-degree line. And so on this side right here, anywhere from here to here, we call that savings. It's all the money that's being saved. And so at each income level, there's a portion that's being saved and a portion that's being spent. Over here, where our consumption line is above the 45-degree line, that is called dis-savings. And dis-savings means that we are going into debt. We're spending more than we are earning. Well, if this is our consumption schedule, let's turn over and look at our savings schedule, our savings function. And whenever we talk about our disposable income, remember it's made of two parts, consumption and savings. Whatever you don't spend, you save. Whatever you don't save, you spend. And so these two graphs are going to be mirror images of each other in a way. So if we have our savings function, so notice that we have over here I have it labeled with S for savings, and down here I have disposable income. And as our disposable income is increasing, so is the amount that we're saving. As our disposable income is decreasing, so is the amount that we're saving. And so over here, where savings is above the zero line, we've got this is all our savings. We're saving above zero. And down here is all our dis-savings. We're saving below zero, saving less than $0. And so these two graphs kind of show the relationship of our income to our savings and to our spending. And that's going to be important to a Keynesian economist. All right, let's go on. Now, some important details. Disposable income is the same as our gross income minus taxes. Disposable income is either spent or saved, which means that disposable income is consumption plus savings. Now, when we talk about consumption, it's made up of a few different things. It's made up of, or determined by the amount of our disposable income and our propensity to save. What's the word propensity mean? Propensity means likelihood. So at every possible income, there's a different likelihood of how much we're going to save. Are you more likely to save money if you earn a lot or a little? Probably a lot. And so, do households consume if disposable income is zero? Yes, they do. Because you still need to eat. You may still have to go into debt. You have some dis-savings going on, but there's some autonomous consumption, things that is occurring no matter what. Savings is the money that we're not spending. I know that seems so basic and simple, but that's what it is. It's the money we're not spending. The ability to save is constrained by how much we earn and what our propensity is to consume, how much we're likely to spend. We have two formulas to help us figure this out, to figure out how much at any one income we are likely to save or spend. And so it's pretty easy to figure. It's called the average propensity to consume, and we take the amount that we consume and we divide it by our disposable income. To figure out how much we're saving at a certain income, it's the average propensity to save, and we take our savings and we divide that by our disposable income. Remember that APS and APC will always equal 1. So really what we've done is any one point on our consumption curve can be shown with this formula. Now let's talk about something MPC and MPS. This stands for the marginal propensity to consume and the marginal propensity to save. Remember what marginal means. Marginal means extra or additional. So what we're going to look at is what percent of every extra dollar is saved or spent. So if I earn another dollar over what I earn now, how much of that additional dollar am I likely to save, and how much of that additional dollar am I likely to consume? And so we have a formula. To figure out propensity to consume, the formula is the change in consumption divided by the change in income. And the marginal propensity to save is the change in savings divided by the change in disposable income. So let's say, for example, that I was making $900, okay, and I get a raise to $1,000, okay, but at the same time, I used to spend, let's see, I used to spend 880 of my dollars, okay, and now I spend 960 of my dollars. Well, how do we figure out this formula? It's a change in consumption. So change in consumption is, how much is that? $80 divided by the change in income, which was $100. And so the marginal propensity to consume is going to be 80%. What's the marginal propensity to save? It's going to be 20% or 0.2. How do I know that without even doing a formula? Well, I know whatever's not spent is saved, so if it's 80% to consume, it must be 20% to save. I could do all the numbers, but I don't need to. All right. What are, oh, sorry, we'll clear that out. What are the determinants of consumption and saving? And so when we look at that graph, what are the things, determinants are things that change the line, that move that consumption line up or down, or move that savings line up or down. And these are the determinants of it. Determinants of consumption is wealth, is the first one. If you have more wealth, you are likely to spend more money. Yeah. Wealth, though, remember, is not just our income. It's the value of all our assets. So the value of my real estate holdings, my stocks and bonds, my jewelry, anything that I have. If I become more wealthy, I will tend to spend more money and save less. If I am decreased in wealth, I'm going to spend less money and save more. Expectations. When you have positive expectations, you're likely to spend more money. If you think that the future is going great, oh, I know I'm going to get a raise soon, I know my job's secure, I'm going to spend more money, and I'm not going to save as much. However, if I'm worried about the future, if I have a negative expectation, perhaps I think the economy is going to do poorly, perhaps I think that inflation's coming, or I think that I might lose my job, I'm going to decrease my consumption and increase my savings. Household debt can work two different ways. If you have a lot of debt, it means you have credit cards, they're all maxed out. Well, you're going to have to decrease your consumption and increase your savings. You need to pay off that debt. If you have very low debt, though, you can easily increase your consumption and decrease your savings. You can start spending more money because you have it's like you have this possibility that you could go into debt, and so you have all this easy credit. Taxes. If taxes get increased, you're going to decrease your consumption because you have less money to spend. You're going to decrease your savings. Both are going to go down. If taxes go down, you're in a bed to save more and spend more. So this is what we've learned today is the Keynesian approach to economics. We've learned a little bit about Say's law. We've learned about the consumption function and the savings function, and we've learned how to figure out MPC and MPS. Please make sure you understand these things for our next test.